Welcome to BookBuzz Reviews and Summaries. Imagine waking up every morning with a sense of calm instead of the frantic rush to check off endless to-do lists. Picture yourself not chasing the next deadline or feeling trapped in the whirlwind of constant urgency. Instead, envision a life where you can make deliberate, conscious choices about where to invest your time, energy, and focus on the things that truly matter. Now, think about how it would feel to reclaim control over your days, to break free from the suffocating pressures of modern life, and to embrace a pace that reflects your true values. This is the promise of Undoing Urgency. Reclaim Your Time for the Things That Matter Most by Reynolds, a transformative journey that challenges the toxic belief that we need to be perpetually busy, constantly available, and relentlessly urgent in order to live meaningful, successful lives. Through this book, Reynolds offers not just a roadmap for reclaiming our time, but also a powerful shift in perspective that encourages us to stop rushing and start living with purpose. In today's world, urgency is a badge of honor. We've all heard the phrase, "time is money," and it's become ingrained in our collective consciousness. But in the race to be constantly productive, we've lost something essential: the ability to enjoy the present moment, to savor our experiences, and to truly connect with what matters most. We live in an era of relentless urgency, where every email, every phone call, and every notification feels like an emergency. We fill our days with activities that feel important in the moment but ultimately leave us drained, disconnected, and wondering where the time went. Reynolds, in his insightful and practical guide, takes us on a deep dive into the harmful effects of urgency and how we can break free from its grip. But more than just a critique of modern life, Undoing Urgency offers a blueprint for a life that is intentional, fulfilling, and focused on the things that truly make a difference. Reynolds argues that the key to undoing urgency lies not in doing more, but in doing less, and doing it with purpose. But why is urgency so pervasive in the first place? Why do we constantly feel the pressure to move faster, do more, and accomplish everything at once? It's a question that Reynolds addresses head-on, shining a light on the societal forces that have shaped our relationship with time. From the rise of technology and the always-connected culture to the toxic hustle mentality, we've become conditioned to view urgency as a necessary part of life. Yet, in this pursuit of speed and productivity, we're sacrificing our well-being, our relationships, and our ability to live authentically. Reynolds doesn't just tell us about the problem, he offers a solution. He presents a framework that helps us redefine how we relate to time, making the case that we don't have to be in a constant state of rush to be successful or fulfilled. Through a series of actionable steps, he guides readers through a process of deconstructing the myth of urgency, helping them slow down and reconnect with their deeper values. He shows us how to say no to the distractions that drain our time and energy, and how to say yes to the things that bring us joy, fulfillment, and meaning. One of the most powerful aspects of Undoing Urgency is Reynolds' emphasis on conscious decision-making. He challenges readers to be intentional about their time, to recognize that every moment is an opportunity to align their actions with their true priorities. He encourages us to ask ourselves difficult questions. What do I truly care about? What would my life look like if I stopped rushing and started focusing on the things that really matter? It's a process of deep self-reflection that can lead to profound shifts in how we experience time. But this book isn't just about slowing down. It's about doing so with intention. It's about reclaiming our autonomy and regaining control over our schedules. Through thoughtful exercises and practical tools, Reynolds empowers readers to break free from the endless cycle of urgency and begin living in a way that is more aligned with their true selves. Whether it's creating space for self-care, nurturing meaningful relationships, or pursuing a passion project, Undoing Urgency helps us realize that we have the power to shape our time in ways that serve our deepest needs. So, why should you care about this book? Because we've all been caught in the trap of urgency. We've all felt the weight of too many demands, the pressure to keep up, and the frustration of never feeling like we have enough time. But undoing urgency offers a way out. It gives us the tools to reclaim our time and live more intentionally. In a world that constantly pushes us to do more and be more, this book invites us to do less, but in a way that is far more meaningful, fulfilling, and connected to our deepest desires. Imagine a life where you have the time to pause, reflect, and be present, where your days are filled with purpose rather than perpetual urgency, where you no longer feel like you're chasing time, but rather allowing it to unfold in a way that serves you. This isn't some far-off ideal. It's a life that is achievable, one decision at a time. And it begins with undoing the urgency that has defined so much of our existence. So, as you embark on this journey through undoing urgency, prepare to be challenged, inspired, and empowered to take back control over your time. Let Reynolds show you how to stop being a slave to urgency and start living with intention, purpose, and a renewed sense of freedom. The life you've always wanted, one where you focus on what truly matters, is waiting for you. And it all starts with undoing urgency. Are you ready to reclaim your time? Part 1. The Time Thieves. Understanding the urgency that controls us. The illusion of busyness. Imagine waking up in the morning to the sound of your phone buzzing, reminding you of a dozen tasks that need to be done right now. Your mind races. The to-do list seems endless, and the urgency feels overwhelming. You start your day on autopilot, jumping from one thing to the next, checking emails, making phone calls, answering texts, and trying to meet deadlines that never seem to end. But as the day wears on, you can't shake the nagging feeling that something is missing. You're busy, yes, but are you living? This is the reality that Matt Reynolds opens Part 1 with. He introduces the concept of urgency, not just as a feeling, but as a powerful force that has woven its way into every aspect of our lives. This sense of urgency, this perpetual need to act quickly and be constantly on the move, has become a time thief, robbing us of the very thing we need most, time for what truly matters. In this first part, Reynolds lays the groundwork for the entire book. He describes how we have become slaves to urgency, making us feel like we're accomplishing something when in fact we're spinning our wheels. Our culture has glorified busyness, treating it as a badge of honor. We pride ourselves on being able to juggle multiple tasks, meet deadlines, and manage 100 different things at once. But what is this costing us? The epidemic of urgency. Reynolds dives deep into the psychology of urgency. It's not just a product of our fast-paced, hyper-connected world. It's something that we've been conditioned to accept. Think about how many times in the day you feel compelled to check your phone, respond to a message, or react to something immediately. The constant notifications from emails, social media, and apps have trained our brains to operate in fight-or-flight mode. We don't pause to consider what really matters. Instead, we're focused on getting through the next task as quickly as possible. And the cycle continues, day in and day out. But Reynolds doesn't stop there. He unpacks how this sense of urgency has roots in both our personal habits and society as a whole. He talks about the pressure to always be on, the drive for productivity, and the glorification of multitasking. In a world where doing more is seen as a sign of success, we begin to forget that being is just as important. We fill our days with things that don't matter, chasing tasks that don't contribute to our deeper goals or values. What ends up happening is that we lose touch with the things that truly fulfill us, our relationships, our passions, our health. Reynolds introduces an intriguing concept, the tyranny of urgency. This is where the book takes an interesting turn. Urgency is more than just a mental state. It's a force that controls our actions, decisions, and, ultimately, our lives. It tricks us into thinking that everything is urgent, that everything needs to be done right now. And in doing so, we sacrifice long-term fulfillment for short-term productivity. The myth of getting it all done. Reynolds isn't just pointing out the problem, he's also challenging a deep-seated myth that we can get it all done. This myth keeps us trapped in a never-ending cycle of to-do lists and mental clutter. We keep telling ourselves that once we get through this list, we'll finally have the time to do what we really want. But Reynolds points out that this moment never really arrives. There's always another task, another deadline, another fire to put out. Through the stories of real people, overwhelmed parents, hardworking professionals, and individuals struggling to maintain a work-life balance, Reynolds illustrates how the myth of getting it all done only makes things worse. It encourages us to focus on the quantity of tasks completed rather than the quality of our lives. It leads us to measure our worth based on how many things we can check off in a day instead of whether we're prioritizing the things that will bring us joy and fulfillment. And what's the result of this constant rush? A life that feels disconnected. We may be busy, but we're not actually living with intention. We're reactive, not proactive. We've lost the ability to slow down, to pause, to reflect. Our lives have become a series of transactions, not experiences. The shifting mindset, from urgency to purpose. This section introduces the first of many mindset shifts that Reynolds suggests throughout the book, moving from urgency to purpose. He stresses that reclaiming our time is not about cutting out busy work or eliminating all tasks. It's about understanding that some tasks need to be delayed, delegated, or even discarded. The key is to focus on the things that align with our deepest values and long-term goals. Reynolds takes a moment to remind us that urgency doesn't always feel like a negative force. In fact, many of us wear it like a badge of honor. We equate urgency with importance. But by challenging this belief, we open the door to a new approach to time management. What if we measured the success of our day not by how many tasks we completed, but by how closely our actions aligned with our purpose? He provides a practical tool to help readers identify what truly matters to them, the life audit. This exercise involves pausing and reflecting on where your time actually goes versus where you want it to go. It's a hard-hitting look at how we spend our time and a first step toward making conscious, intentional choices. The path forward, reclaiming time for what matters most. At the end of part 1, Reynolds doesn't just leave readers with a sobering diagnosis of the problem, he offers a hopeful path forward. He presents the idea that we can undo the urgency in our lives and replace it with clarity and purpose. To do this, we need to become intentional stewards of our time. This part of the book sets the stage for the practical strategies that Reynolds will explore in later sections, but it also provides the emotional motivation to get started. It's about shifting our mindset, recognizing that time is a gift, and being more deliberate in how we choose to spend it. In part 1 of Undoing Urgency, Matt Reynolds effectively opens our eyes to the ways in which urgency controls our lives. But more importantly, he challenges us to think differently about time, not as something to be managed, but as something to be honored. By the end of this section, you're left with a burning question: what would happen if you could undo the urgency in your own life? This is just the beginning of the journey, but it's a powerful one, pushing readers to reflect, rethink, and reclaim their time for the things that truly matter. As Reynolds promises, the next parts of the book will provide actionable strategies for how to make this shift from urgency to purpose. And you're eager to find out how. Part 2, The Blueprint for Undoing Urgency, Creating Space for What Truly Matters. The Power of Intentionality. In part 1, Matt Reynolds introduced the problem: urgency, a pervasive force that controls our time and robs us of meaningful experiences. But in part 2, he begins to reveal the solution, offering a blueprint for undoing urgency and taking back control of our time. Reynolds starts by reinforcing one critical idea: to undo urgency, we must become intentional. This isn't just about managing our schedules or checking things off a to-do list. It's about aligning our actions with our true desires, values, and purpose. He paints a picture of a life where we choose what's important, instead of allowing external pressures and distractions to dictate our every move. He presents the notion of intentionality as a key weapon in the fight against urgency. Intentionality is the act of choosing what to focus on, making conscious decisions about how we spend our time. This goes beyond time management. It's about creating a life designed by choice, not by default. Reynolds emphasizes that living intentionally doesn't require doing more, it requires doing the right things. In a world that constantly demands our attention, intentionality is the antidote to overwhelm. And the first step is to reflect on what really matters. To stop and ask, what do I want my life to look like? Reclaiming your time, the life audit. Reynolds transitions into a practical tool that will serve as the foundation for the rest of the book, the life audit. He encourages readers to take a hard look at how they're currently spending their time, what he calls the snapshot of your life. How much of your time is actually spent on things that align with your goals, values, and desires? How much time is consumed by tasks that are urgent but not important? These questions prompt you to think deeply about where your time is going and whether it's being used in a way that enriches your life. The life audit is more than a simple inventory. It's an exercise in awareness. Reynolds provides a framework for evaluating different areas of life: work, relationships, health, hobbies, and personal growth. He helps you identify the areas where you feel drained or disconnected and spot opportunities for improvement. He stresses that this isn't about feeling guilty for how you've spent your time in the past. It's about creating clarity for the future. Through a series of reflective questions, Reynolds leads you through the process of evaluating whether your time is spent in alignment with your deeper values. Do you find yourself saying yes to obligations out of obligation, or do you say yes because it aligns with your goals? Are you spending too much time on things that don't serve you, simply because they seem urgent? The life audit forces you to reckon with these questions and invites you to start making conscious choices. The goal isn't to eliminate everything from your life. Rather, the life audit helps you understand what's taking up your time so you can prioritize better, let go of distractions, and intentionally carve out space for the things that truly matter. The urgency filter, sorting what matters from what doesn't. After completing the life audit, Reynolds introduces the urgency filter, another powerful tool designed to help you decide what demands your attention. The urgency filter is essentially a method for sorting out the noise from the signal, identifying which tasks are genuinely important and which ones are simply a product of external urgency. Reynolds explains that much of the stress and frustration we experience comes from trying to do everything. We respond to every email, accept every meeting invitation, and agree to every request because everything seems urgent. But the truth is, most of these things are not as urgent as they seem. The urgency filter helps you recognize the difference between tasks that are truly important and those that are just time-consuming distractions. The filter consists of 3 simple steps. 1. Identify the task. Take a moment to understand the nature of the task or request. Is it truly urgent, or is it something that can wait? 2. Evaluate the impact. Consider the impact of the task. Will it move you closer to your goals, or is it a distraction? Does it align with your purpose, or is it simply a should? 3. Decide the next step. Once you've evaluated the task, decide what to do with it. Should you prioritize it, delegate it, or let it go? The urgency filter empowers you to take control of your schedule by making intentional decisions about how to respond. The beauty of the urgency filter is that it allows you to cut through the clutter and make space for what matters most. It's a way of taking back control of your time, rather than reacting impulsively to every incoming demand. The time-blocking method, making room for what matters. One of the most impactful strategies Reynolds introduces in Part 2 is the time-blocking method. This method involves intentionally setting aside blocks of time for specific tasks, activities, or goals. Instead of letting the day unfold haphazardly, you proactively plan your time around what's most important. Reynolds explains that time blocking isn't just about filling your calendar with tasks, it's about creating space for the things that bring value to your life. For example, you might block off an hour each morning to work on a creative project that aligns with your long-term goals. You might set aside time in the evening to connect with your loved ones, ensuring that relationships remain a priority, despite your busy schedule. By establishing clear blocks of time, you give yourself permission to focus without feeling rushed. Time blocking allows you to approach your day with purpose, knowing that you have dedicated time for both work and the things that matter most. Reynolds encourages readers to be flexible with their time blocks, acknowledging that life is unpredictable, but the goal is to create a rhythm that prioritizes what matters. The power of saying no, creating boundaries. A major hurdle many people face in undoing urgency is the inability to say no. We say yes to everything, even when we know that doing so will stretch us too thin. Reynolds explains that learning to say no is one of the most powerful tools for reclaiming your time and undoing urgency. He introduces the concept of boundary setting, the ability to define your limits and protect your time. Saying no isn't about being rude or rejecting people. It's about honoring your own needs and ensuring that you have the space to focus on what matters most. Reynolds talks about how setting boundaries creates a sense of empowerment, as it allows you to reclaim control over your life and resist the urge to overcommit. Through anecdotes and real-life examples, Reynolds illustrates how saying no can lead to greater clarity and fulfillment. Saying no to urgent requests that don't align with your goals or values opens up space for the things that truly matter, whether it's time for personal growth, self-care, or meaningful relationships. The 80-20 rule, focusing on what moves the needle. Reynolds introduces the 80-20 rule, also known as the Pareto principle, which states that 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts. This principle encourages you to focus on the few tasks or activities that produce the greatest impact, while letting go of the rest. Reynolds suggests that most of us are spending time on low-impact activities, checking emails, attending unnecessary meetings, or dealing with small tasks that don't contribute to our big-picture goals. Instead, he encourages readers to identify the key 20% of activities that will move the needle forward. By focusing on these high-impact tasks, we can create more meaningful results with less effort. Building momentum, making small shifts for big results. The second part of the book concludes with a motivating call to action. Start small, but start now. Reynolds emphasizes that undoing urgency and reclaiming your time is not an overnight transformation. It's a journey, and the key is to start with small shifts that can snowball into larger, more meaningful changes. He encourages readers to experiment with the strategies he's outlined so far: the life audit, the urgency filter, time blocking, saying no, and the 80-20 rule. Start with one small change at a time and notice how it impacts your sense of control and satisfaction. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress. By the end of Part 2, readers are equipped with a set of practical tools and a mindset shift that can help them undo urgency and start living with greater purpose. The methods may seem simple, but Reynolds reminds us that it's the small, consistent changes that ultimately lead to big results. And most importantly, it's about creating space for the things that matter most. Part 3. Living beyond urgency, sustaining change, and building a meaningful life. The first step, the art of taking small, consistent action. In Part 3, Matt Reynolds shifts from theory to application, moving beyond the tools and frameworks he has shared in earlier sections to focus on how to sustain the changes you've begun making. In this section, he emphasizes the importance of consistency and deliberate action. While it's easy to get excited by the idea of reclaiming time and undoing urgency, maintaining those habits in the long term is where the real challenge lies. Reynolds draws an important distinction here between motivation and discipline. Motivation, he explains, can be fleeting. There will be days when it's hard to get out of bed or push forward. But discipline is what gets you through those moments. It's the commitment to keep going even when enthusiasm wanes. He introduces the concept of small wins as a way to stay motivated. The key to lasting change isn't huge, dramatic shifts, but rather small, consistent actions that compound over time. He talks about the concept of progress over perfection, reminding readers that there will be setbacks and slip-ups along the way. It's important to embrace imperfections and keep moving forward. One step at a time, one decision at a time, you start to build a life that is aligned with your true values. Reynolds underscores that, in this journey, every small effort counts. The 3 Ps: purpose, process, and people. One of the key concepts in this section is the 3 Ps: purpose, process, and people. Reynolds suggests that to truly undo urgency, we need to find the right balance between these 3 elements. They serve as the guiding forces in your quest to reclaim time for what matters most. 1. Purpose. Your purpose is the why behind everything you do. Why are you choosing to undo urgency in the first place? Reynolds urges readers to clearly define their purpose and make sure their daily actions are aligned with it. He suggests crafting a personal mission statement or a vision that serves as a compass, guiding your decisions. Reynolds explains that people who lack purpose often fall into the trap of urgency because they don't know what to prioritize. Without a clear sense of purpose, everything seems important, and they find themselves reacting to every demand. When purpose is clear, it becomes much easier to say no to things that don't align with it. 2. Process. The process is the how. Reynolds highlights the importance of developing systems and routines that help you stay on track. He expands on the strategies introduced earlier in the book, like time blocking, setting boundaries, and evaluating priorities, showing readers how to turn them into reliable processes that fit into their everyday life. This is where consistency starts to pay off. He emphasizes that it's not enough to simply know what you should do. You need to create a structured approach that integrates those practices into your routine. This could be as simple as blocking out time for creative pursuits or establishing rituals that help you get into a focused state. The process is what keeps you moving forward, even when life gets busy. 3. People. The third element is people, the relationships that both sustain and challenge you. Reynolds points out that surrounding yourself with the right people is crucial to undoing urgency. If you're surrounded by others who are constantly in go mode, it will be harder to resist the pull of urgency. But if you have supportive friends, family members, or colleagues who respect your time and boundaries, you'll be much more likely to maintain your progress. He suggests that community plays an integral role in creating sustainable change. Whether it's a mentor who helps you stay accountable, a close friend who understands your values, or a partner who shares your vision for a balanced life, the right people can keep you on track. On the flip side, Reynolds advises readers to distance themselves from those who thrive on urgency and chaos. The mindset shift. From urgency to calm. A major turning point in Part 3 is the mindset shift that Reynolds urges readers to make. He emphasizes that undoing urgency isn't just about time management. It's about changing the way you approach life itself. It requires moving away from a mindset of constant rush and overwhelm to one of calm and presence. Reynolds introduces the idea of the present moment as a tool for cultivating calm. He explains that people often get caught up in urgency because they're either dwelling on the past or obsessing over the future. But the present moment is the only place where real change happens. By cultivating mindfulness and learning to be fully present, we can disconnect from the frantic pace of urgency. He also emphasizes the importance of self-compassion during this process. Undoing urgency doesn't mean being perfect at it every day. It means allowing yourself grace and understanding when you fall off track. Reynolds suggests practicing daily affirmations or journaling as ways to ground yourself in the present and reconnect with your values. Thanks for listening. Please like, subscribe, and click the bell icon to get new video updates. Happy learning!